All right, welcome to The Explainer. Let's just dive right in today because we're tackling something literally every single one of us has felt. Picture this. You open your phone for just a quick message, and suddenly, bam, you're hit with this quiet, universal ache. You're watching everyone else's highlight reel, and you're feeling perpetually, hopelessly behind. It feels like a very modern epidemic, right? But the crazy thing is, the cure we're unpacking today actually comes from thousands of years ago.
You know the trap. That innocent 20-minute scrolling spiral that just magically evaporates into an hour. You log on and see a former classmate just bought a beautiful house. Or actually, maybe someone 5 years younger than you just hit the exact career milestone you've been grinding toward. Against this absolutely frictionless stream of other people's wins, your own messy, unedited life suddenly feels, well, entirely inadequate. You just feel like you're running out of time.
Now, intellectually, we completely get what's happening. We know we're comparing our own chaotic, unedited internal reality to their highly curated, star-studded external presentation. We know it's a rigged game. But that doesn't really help, does it? This thing is automatic anyway. The anxiety spikes, and your brain immediately screams, everyone else is further ahead.
But here is what's absolutely fascinating. The Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient text that obviously couldn't have even imagined a smartphone, it actually diagnosed this exact psychological trap with eerie precision. In fact, it mentions this specific mistake exactly twice. It opens its whole argument with it in chapter 3, and then echoes it almost word for word at the very end. It brings it up twice because avoiding this trap is the absolute linchpin to a meaningful life.
So the Gita calls this trap paradharma. Para meaning another, and dharma meaning path or duty. Paradharma is another person's path, and the text describes living someone else's path as bhayavaha, which translates to being full of danger. Just think about how profound that is. The very thing that the social media feed makes you desperately ache for, to be living their life, hitting their milestones, operating on their timeline, is actually considered a fearful, genuinely dangerous outcome. Why? Because chasing someone else's life, even if you are incredibly successful at it, dangerously pulls you further and further away from yourself.
Just listen to how radical this claim is. Better your own path, even done imperfectly, than someone else's path done well. I mean, really sit with that for a second. The text doesn't just offer a gentle, comparison is the thief of joy kind of platitude. It makes a definitive statement. Failing at what is truly yours is vastly better than succeeding at what is not.
So, why do we do this to ourselves? Well, if we unpack the psychology, the ancient tradition calls this comparison asmita. It's the ego knot. It is a fabricated version of the self that literally cannot know itself unless it's measuring itself against others. It absolutely requires a scoreboard to exist. And tangled up in this ego knot is this intense craving for what others have, mixed with a quiet, toxic resentment of them for having it. It's basically your own discerning mind turning completely against itself.
And wow, look at what this comparison does to our perception of time. The tradition maps life into distinct stages, or ashramas. So roughly 0 to 25 is your foundation, 25 to 50 is your heavy lifting and work, and 50 plus moves toward peace and mastery. Comparison brutally collapses these timelines. It makes you measure your messy Stage 1 foundation against someone else's polished Stage 3 visibility. It's utterly absurd. If you're a student despairing because you aren't the master yet, you've simply forgotten that you aren't at that point in the road. You're comparing chapter 1 of your book to chapter 20 of theirs.
And this right here is the ultimate distortion of the feed. Social media only shows you the fruit, right? The awards, the vacations, the polished final product. What is completely hidden from you is the soil. The late nights, the miserable failures, the doubts, and those agonizing years of effort. Stacking your unedited reality against their curated fruit is a contest you're going to lose every single time, because a fair version of it never existed in the first place.
The Gita actually anticipates this exact distortion with a pretty perfect metaphor. It says, every undertaking is wrapped in flaw, as fire is wrapped in smoke. Definitely remember this the next time you feel that sting of envy. That perfect life on your screen, it has smoke too. Stress, anxiety, hidden flaws. You simply aren't being shown the smoke. Think of your life like a boat. The river, that's your circumstances, your starting point, and the specific timeline you were dealt. It's not the same river as anyone else's, and resenting that won't change the current. Your oar, on the other hand, is your actions, what you actually do with your path today. Comparison is the exhausting attempt to row someone else's river. It drains you precisely because it is physically impossible to steer a boat you aren't sitting in. All right, so let's move into the solutions, the 4 ancient antidotes.
Antidote number 1 is Karma Yoga, the path of the hands. The practice here is simple but super profound. Do one piece of your own work today, fully, with the phone entirely away. Nothing dissolves the illusion of comparison quite like grounding your hands in your own actual soil. The social media feed literally cannot reach you while you're in deep, physical contact with your own craft.
Next up is Bhakti Yoga. This is the path of the heart, and it relies on a concept called mudita, which means deliberate gladness at others' good fortune. Honestly, this is the most direct antidote to envy. When the sting of comparison hits you, your practice is to deliberately, actively wish that person well. It's going to feel completely impossible and fake the first few times, for sure. But if you keep at it, strangely, it sets you free. Their win genuinely stops feeling like your personal loss.
Then we have the third antidote, Jnana Yoga, which is the path of the mind. This is a more intellectual practice where you step back and interrogate your own thoughts. You have to ask yourself, whose life am I actually measuring mine against? Do I truly, deep down, want all the responsibilities and realities of that person's life, or do I just not want to feel left behind? You're actively searching your mind to see exactly where you slipped into paradharma, where you started chasing their path instead of your own.
And finally, Dhyana Yoga, the path of stillness. This means carving out a fixed window of daily digital stillness where there is no feed at all. Zero. You cannot stop comparing yourself to others while you're actively standing right in the middle of the comparison machine. You have to step completely out of it on purpose every single day, just to remember who you actually are.
So how do we actually put all this together in the real world?
Well, the tradition suggests binding these practices with a sankalpa, a firm, dedicated commitment. So here is your challenge. For 40 days, commit to this. Before you open any feed, before you let that scoreboard load, do one act of your own work. Ground your hands in your own soil first. And then, when you do open the feed, practice a silent mudita, that deliberate gladness, for anyone whose post triggers that sting of envy. The order matters immensely here. Walk your own path every morning before you look at anyone else's.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought here. The cure for comparison isn't forcing yourself to feel content. It's returning daily to the work that is actually yours, until the concept of who is ahead stops making sense entirely, because you're no longer on their road. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to honestly ask yourself, whose life am I actually measuring mine against? Take back your oar, focus on your own river. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.